All right, Mustangs, you're about to take your Unit 6 test for pre-algebra today. And since you're doing this through your online learning and not in the actual classroom, there's a few things us teachers would like you guys to be aware of in terms of how you can manipulate some of the tools to answer the questions. That way, hopefully that doesn't become an issue with trying to answer questions correctly and incorrectly on your test today. First thing you want to be aware of, and it's important on all of these tests, right, is to make sure that you're reading the directions carefully. So, if it asks you to select multiple answers, those types of things, or if it wants you to explain your answer, make sure you're doing that and going through and answer each of the questions based on what the directions are telling you. So, you'll have different tools to use and work through. The Scratchpad tool is here for a few of the problems. It's got a lot of different things that you can use and utilize. Sometimes you might be able to use it. Sometimes not, but that's kind of up to you. It just depends on what you're looking at and how you want to answer the question. So make sure that if you see that Scratchpad tool and you think you need to write things out or even type some things out, you can use that. You've got features to undo and redo things, trash can, those types of things. But then when you exit out of it, it'll keep what you use that for. So as we work through some of these questions, right, you want to make sure that you're looking at it. Make sure you're scrolling up and down all the way on a lot of these questions. You may have some things that you can't see right away, and so that's something that's important when you're doing that. Here's an option here on the third one. Make sure to select 3 relationships, right? So you know how many answers this question needs, so make sure you're looking for those 3 answers. Question 4 is the first one I really want to draw your attention to in terms of the way it's set up. You've got these different graphs, right? These 2 different graphs that you're looking at, and they want you to kind of use the descriptors, right? One thing that you might miss if you don't look closely, there's one more column all the way to the right that's called has an outlier. So if that describes one of these graphs, don't forget about that one, right? You can see the first 5 here, descriptors, but then that 6th one, that last column all the way out here, you actually have to scroll. So don't forget that if one of those graphs or both of those graphs meet that description. Question 5 here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes to fill in, so make sure you're filling all those when you're answering that question. Number 6 is another one that you need to make sure you're being careful with because you've got a table here, right? And then some boxes to fill in for your frequency, relative frequency by row. And then you also have each of these graphs that you want to look at in terms of your answer choices, so make sure you're looking at that carefully as well. Once we get to question 7, this is probably the most tricky to navigate here. It already automatically opens up that tool for you, this freehand drawing tool. So what you need to do is draw a line that says you think is a good fit. The best option for that, rather than the freehand drawing, is probably the second one here. That looks kind of like an N, right, or a zigzag shape, that straight line tool. So if you click once, it'll start that line for you, and you put it wherever you think you need to go, and then double click it, and it'll do that for you. And then you can move it as you need to, up and down. It's one of those things that if you need to move it, rotate it, those types of things, it'll let you do it that way. So that's probably the best tool that you could use for that. Remember that you've got these undo tools up here, which will undo steps if you redo it, those types of things. The trash can works by clicking on the whole screen, and then whatever's on the screen that you want to delete, you just click on it and take it away, and then you click that trash can again, and you can go back to those tools. So again, when you're drawing the line for this one, you could use the pencil tool here, but this second one here is probably your best one, the straight line, in terms of how you're going to set that up to fit your graph. You'll also see on question 7 and 8, these boxes down here. Those are there for you to explain your work, give a little more detail. So if you feel like you need to give an explanation of why you answered a question the way that you did on number 7 and number 8, that's there for you. You don't necessarily have to use that, but it's an option here down here for you to type some things in. So if you want to make a note to your teacher about how you answered each of these questions, you'll see part A and B to answer the questions here. You've got 2 boxes that go along with this part A and B, but then you also have this text box that's down here too to give some explanation if you feel like it's necessary for your teacher. So the last thing you want to do right before you submit, you click here, you want to make sure that you've answered all those things. If you flag an item, you want to go back and look at it. It'll also tell you I haven't answered any questions, right? So I've got 7 unanswered and I left that last one blank. So that's something that before you click that submit button and you go through and turn this in, make sure that you're going through and checking all your answers, going back and looking at your work, make sure that you've followed the directions for everything, all of that kind of stuff. as you're moving forward. If you have questions while you're testing, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Send us an email. Make sure you're on conferences if your teacher's having those. But we will be available to you if you do have questions. Just want to give you this video to give you a little bit of heads up on how to use some of the tools. So thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and best of luck on your Unit 6 test.